This will be a lecture belonging to the Necromanteon, Plutonic Necromantic series of lectures that I issued in the past. It will be on the Mother of Silences, or Diva Angerona. So hear me. Diva Angerona. Volupia, there stood a statue of Angerona, ore obligato obnignatosque, with the mouth shut tight and sealed. It is a great subject of controversy that this posture can have meant. Not to make too long a story of it, I myself do not doubt that Otto and Altheim have the right answer in connecting Angerona with the Dea Tacita, or silent goddess, and interpreting her as goddess of the silences, or the Manium Tacitorum, the silent or infernal shades. It is further worth mentioning that there was a connection between Angerona, in whose honor the Divalia were held on the 21st December, and Larenta, to whom special honors were paid every year on the 23rd of December. She is compared with the Dea Tacita, whom he calls eine Indignation der Larenta. Moreover, a point not to be overlooked is that Larenta herself seems to have been a goddess of the underworld, at whose tomb we know that the Flamen Quirinalis offered a sacrifice for the dead on her feast day. This tomb was called a mundus, that is, a grave usually closed and opened only on the feast day as a suitable place of sacrifice in the Roman view for the underworld gods. Hippoctonoi. Since it constituted in a sense a passage between the world above and the world below, as in liminal hecatic spaces, between Hecate Soteria, Hecate Limina, Hecate Physis, that of the underworld with the green mask, that is masquerading herself to the initiate, as not to terrorize him with the forms of all creepy crawlies, serpents, and dragons, swirling like chaos behind her. Now, this was a selection from Wagenwort, Pietas, Select Studies in Roman Religion, Leiden, Brill, page 23. Now, as for my commentary, lousy, brutish, and oft vulgar, narrow-minded and arrogant man as I oft may be. Most of my greatest achievements came from silence and the night. Silence is not the lack of sound. Silence is the lack of sensory flux that contains all content in divine positive void. Why positive? Because it is not nihilistic, negative. There the divine and death reside as twin aspects of bios and thanatos. There is no absolute death, inasmuch as there is no absolute silence. In all worlds, gradation and saturation of death, silence, divine, and life resides. The silence of tomb is the speech of matter which they are made. The silence of Samskia, Idola, or the sorrowful shades of the dead, or black souls, exhausted to the point of petrification, are the decay of their speech, their breath of life. But it is never a total silence, as if void. If breath is allegorized as the soul with the blood and speech as creative logos within among the living, the titanic winds between gargantuan black forms is their potential, and the intellectual fire their inception, providing them with essence. What happens when we switch off our senses one by one? The seeing, darkness. The hearing, silence. The tactile touch, the olfactory scent, the organoleptic taste. Well, the mind. What if the mind dies? The soul retains its properties, as if cuts and polishes off what it used to be. Assuming that we hypothesize about an unborn man, he never was and never will be. The potential essence didn't acquire the interfaces appropriate to a mortal man or woman. It didn't emerge in actuality. Yet how trivial the idea that apart from the man that never was, nothing else is. Deep worlds exist on so many levels that even the unborn man is something in relation to what is. His non-existence is measured by what is eleatic, that is, if it has power, self-property, it must therefore exist. Now, trivial silence and silent speech is the speech of the mind, notion, intellect. What if someone would be born without a brain? Its organisms, teleology has an inclination towards self-sustenance like people in a coma, an organism in a coma. What is someone is born deaf and mute, yet as a savant at understanding absolutely everything in the universe has no means of communicating neither through writing nor gesturing. If that person starts to dance all of a sudden attempting to communicate what it knows and understands, contained in perfect silence. It is writing the divine notions, the infernal zones, into its interpretation. That is why no hermeneutics was flawed. Ancient primordial shamans weren't bestial idiots. If they witnessed perfect, contentful silence, they operated within its primordial calling. Whom are you, paternal abyss, maternal idea? I am silence, therefore sing. How to relate Diva Angerona to the silence of these shadows and their whispers that is bare silence. It is the liminal tragic heroism of the suspense between the silence of life and silence of death, the Socratic irony of that tyrant death. That which can't be spoken of, communicated, must be so. In whispers, black languages, languages of the shadows. Whomsoever acquired existence is bound not to be lost in nature. Whomsoever acquired a soul is bound not to be lost in nature. Whomsoever wasn't unborn acquires the properties that became as a part of his silence. Titanic majority of the things immortal are unspoken, occult, hidden. The infinity that immortal isn't is the universe of everything he is not. Through this apophati he must nevertheless know himself. Everything that he is, a trifle dust on gargantuan things particle. Yet he is given the chance of being a titan in his own perception, as if unabashed by the masses of titanic air around him and the cosmic voids all across. Whomsoever was exposed to the infinite space, as a void hanging, alienated creature knows, whomsoever merged with this infinite space as his divine home is hovering above the worlds with dragon's majestic slow movement, that has stars in its wings. The greatest secret of Diva Angerona is exactly that. If a logos is uttered, everything that it doesn't contain is that completeness that she presides over. If a mute person doesn't say anything throughout a lifetime and all of a sudden yells, it is the universe apart from this yell that Diva Angerona is. Find her therefore amongst the meadows of holy asphodels, amongst the holy shades.